Hello everyone, it is your favorite man-made disaster Keki here, and One Piece! So yeah, for the majority of you who follow me on my other social medias, you'll know that I recently started One Piece, and even more recently, finished One Piece. Now, I know, I used to be one of those, I hate One Piece's art style, so I'm not gonna watch it. But ever since the live-action One Piece show dropped on Netflix and I kept seeing those edits, I'll admit, I got a little curious. So I asked my brother if he was down and we both sat down to watch it, and oh my gosh! That was my life from September to the first week of January. I'd literally wake up, go to work, get home, watch One Piece, and then repeat. It was so awesome. But yes, for those of you doing very basic math, you'll realize that we did catch up to One Piece in 5 months, and although that is very fast to watch all of the 1,089 episodes that are currently out at the time I'm recording this, I really don't regret it. For those unaware of One Piece's storyline, I'll keep it brief, but basically, it's about a single man named Monkey D. Luffy and his goal to become King of the Pirates, a title that has been coveted by the world's strongest for decades. Him and his crew sail across the world to try to make it to the final island in a dangerous stretch of ocean called the Grand Line, while gathering a crew of misfits from around the world. Luffy, as well as several other members of his crew, have eaten something known as devil fruit, which gives you great power in exchange for your ability to swim for the rest of your life. However, that does not dissuade them to take to the sea and fulfill their dreams. So, because I've been in such a large One Piece brain rot session as of recently, I could not help but relate it to my other fixation, Genshin Impact. Yes, really. I was just randomly sitting one day, and then I thought, what if, the Straw Hat Pirates were, in the Genshin universe and had visions and stuff? And then I physically could not stop thinking about it. So yeah, also remember when I said in my Galmon video that 8 characters was a daunting task? Yeah, let's forget 8 and talk all 10 of the Straw Hats, because that is daunting. Also, warning, One Piece anime spoilers. No, I have not read the manga yet, so this is anime only for right now. I'll be talking about these characters in the order they joined the crew, not necessarily the order I drew them in, so please bear that in mind. So, without further ado, let's jump into the first character. Oh Captain, my Captain, Luffy is up first. Now, taking designs that are meant to be for TV animation and spicing them up to fit Genshin's, how should I put this, hefty design aesthetic was, to put it shortly, an absolute nightmare. Genshin characters are known for their complexity and asymmetrical designs, so I knew the first step was my absolute favorite part, research. So much research, so much so to the point where I couldn't even think about booting up the game because I never wanted to see another Genshin character ever again in my entire life. I decided that I was going to go off the post-time skip designs for the Straw Hats since I wanted them to all feel kind of uniform. Keeping Luffy's Straw Hat is an absolute must since it's kind of like its own character in a way, I guess. I made sure to spice it up a little bit with ropes and stuff, and also his vision. You see, I have this thing that any of you who actually watched my OC as other Magical Girl videos or the Genshin collab I did with Storm a while back will probably have picked up on by now, but if I am designing a character as if they are in another universe, I am not stopping there. Oh no, I can go into heavy detail. And I will go into heavy detail regarding where they are from in said universe, to the powers, and even so far as to take on their backstories while fitting it into the media's lore. So for these ones, of course it was no different because all I'm good is overthinking things. Luffy was given an Anemo vision and a catalyst weapon. I almost thought about giving him Pyro, but thought Anemo was better suited because of something that I had remembered hearing on a video about how people actually receive their visions in-game. We haven't gotten any concrete statements in the game as far as I know, but the criteria for most Anemo vision holders is the loss of a key relationship, usually by death. Now, I know what all of you are thinking. OMG, it works so perfectly for a lovable donut ace. No! You're wrong! Luffy would have needed his vision before setting out on his mission to become King of the Pirates, so I raise you one, the lovely Naruto Uzumaki himself, Sabo. I made sure to include some tribute to his brothers with small little letter charms that are hooked on his coat. I lined it with fur because I knew I wanted Luffy to be from Mondstadt, what with his animo vision being the implication that all he wants is the freedom that comes with being king of the pirates. Most Mondstadt characters have some form of fur or feather lining, so I thought it worked out nicely to have it line his coat and the cuffs of his pants. The rest was just spicing up his original outfit, which honestly ended up looking like a mix of his pre- and post-time skip outfit, but it works. I also decided to give him a large tattoo that wraps around his arm just because I thought it looked cool. Also, another thing that Genshin does really well is its use of patterns on clothing. Each region has different patterns, so I made sure to reference several characters from that area of the map. I wanted to make sure all of these drawings looked like new character reveal posters or something, with elemental and regional backgrounds for each of the characters, so I hope they turned out okay. And with that, Luffy is done. Except no, he was not. You see, I went to show these designs to my family because I was so proud of them, and heads up, don't ask for feedback unless you really want it, especially not from your family that is all artists. Most of the physical revisions were courtesy of Papa Keki, so thank him for his contributions to my art journey. Not every drawing needed reworking, so I'll be doing all the fixes at the end of each character segments. The only things that my dad said were super off happened to be the arm and the torso. The arm was kind of wonky and lacked definition, and the tattoo didn't really look like a tattoo at all because I broke one of the basic rules of art while drawing this because I didn't use any references while drawing something I had literally no knowledge of. So, fix the arm and the tattoo, and now we're finished. Zoro is the next up on our list. I knew from the start he had to be from Inazuma. His character is so perfectly built for Japanese-based settings, it is absolutely ridiculous. Zoro's vision is Electro, and his weapon is a sword. Well, he's still allowed to have his 3 swords, and I love to think about how that'd look as a basic attack in the game, but I don't really have 12 spare hours to revel in how cool that'd be. The Electro-Vision requirements say that these people are usually extremely exceptional or unique, and that's what gets them the vision, so I'd like to imagine Zoro got his vision after losing Kuina. I don't necessarily think it'd be when he swears to become the greatest swordsman and gets her sword, but probably in the years that come after that when he's training. I kept a lot of his basic design because it was already so good, and of course, the Haramaki did stay, but the pose did end up covering a lot of his design in the end, which is kind of sad. That's another thing that really gave me a hard time while drawing for this video. Posing certainly was the problem for most of these drawings, but the thing that I had slowly and very painfully come to realize during this 60+ hour drawing session was that I have a perspective problem. Like, really bad perspective problem. So bad, in fact, that some of these characters I actually had to redraw because they were so off. Zoro was unfortunately one of them, but he was not the biggest offender, no. We'll get to that later. Zoro kept his swords and earrings, but I ended up shortening his coat, kimono thing and cranked up the saturation on it because I just finished Wano and I loved the saturated colors and crispy lines. Yummy, thank you for the meal, I will graciously eat my fill. I decided to use the purple sash from Wano rather than the muted red one he usually has because I really wanted to stick with green and purple being the primary colors while red stayed as an accent color. I made sure to give him a bottle of sake because I can't see him not having one at all times, and what screams manly more than being a raging alcoholic? Overall, I'm still kind of upset that you can't see the whole outfit in this pose, but it fits him well, so whatever. I digress. Now, on to Zoro's revisions. My perspective was once again off, but another thing was my musculature definition. His neck and arms suffered from jelly syndrome the most, with nothing being defined enough to convey how absolutely jacked this Chad is. His leg was also wrong, and his vision, well, it needed a desperate glow up. I also didn't like how his sword crossed over his face. It made the face look weird since his nose was covered by the sword, and he just looked kinda melted. There wasn't too much to change, but since all the things were so slight and small, I just ended up redrawing the entire thing. It took a while, but I do think the second pass looks way better. And that is another Straw Hat done. Now, on to the problem child. love our favorite navigator, but holy crap, she sucked to draw. I knew I wanted her to be from Liyue due to the contract she was in when we first really delved into her backstory in Arlong Park. Also, with Liyue being a port city and the god of that country literally being the god of contracts in Mora, it seemed quite appropriate. What also seemed fitting was the Hydrovision I ended up giving her. Hydrovision requirements include having a certain obsession with a personal goal or pursuit, as well as having a strong sense of personal values and beliefs. Nami's dream to make a map of the entire world is definitely the kind of dream I could see her getting a Hydrovision for. The outfit I based the design off of was her first post-time skip outfit right before Fishman Island, but with a little more regional flair. I changed it from the bikini to a more Chinese-inspired top to make her blend in a little better with the other Genshin characters. It isn't often that you see the ladies in Genshin wearing actual pants, but I think I did well with what I was given. I made her a pole arm user since the clean attack she has in the show was pretty much just a stick when we first met her. I tried to make it look similar to the sorcery clean attack she gets from Usopp on Zoe, but also incorporating an actual blade for the pole arm bit. I was still getting used to adding more things to make these characters feel more like Genshin characters, and my problems with perspective was absolutely not helping. I finished the first pass and thought it was good, until it wasn't, and I ended up redoing most of it since her legs were just wrong. I also ended up changing a few more things as well, like making her polearm look more like her clean attack, as well as actually drawing her tattoo, because yeah, I can't believe I forgot that. I thought about adding more to her tattoo to make it more leeway-ish, I guess, but it already fit pretty well with the country's aesthetic, so I decided to not change an already good thing. Overall, I do think the redraw looks better, but she really doesn't have to be perfect, she just has to be finished. Maybe one day I will actually know how to draw feet, but today is not that day. On to Usopp! Now, I know Nami technically joined after Usopp and Sanji, but whatever. Usopp was really easy to figure out vision and weapon-wise since it's kinda already decided for him post-time skip. The bow was an obvious choice for him, but I knew I still wanted the elements of his Kuro Kabuto while making it look like a bow rather than a slingshot to fit Genshin's weapon design. I honestly really liked how it turned out, and it looks really sleek and subtle compared to most of the other Genshin weapons. You want me I already had some ideas before drawing him that I wanted to keep, like the leafy details and chunky tassels. I also knew that his hat had to be made out of leaves because come on, that is so cool! He did still keep the suspenders and the goggles, but it's toned down a little bit. I really wanted him to look like a wannabe forest ranger. He's not a forest ranger, he's just some dude, but I like to think he was heavily inspired by those who would look out for the forest of Sumeru and wanted to be more like them. This ties pretty well into how he got his Dendrovision in the first place. For those of you who are currently stuck in Inazuma for the Archon quest, Sumeru is a place of knowledge, but it's also a place of dreams and things beyond reality. With that, the fans are theorizing that in order to obtain a Dendrovision, you must have ambitions through either a dream or some form of knowledge. Usopp says that his dream is to become a brave pirate of the sea, and I can see him gaining a vision purely from working towards that dream. It all works out very nicely in my head, actually. After finishing the first pass of drawing, I got some revisions, and of course perspective is still the issue. Certain lines flowed in the wrong way and made the drawing look kinda odd. The lines for the inner thigh here was the main offender. The line curves and intersects right where the line for the drape goes up, so the action kinda gets thrown off. So, fix the drape and the leg as well as his body's general direction and that back arm because, come on, that thing really needed help, and now he's finally finished. I feel like the action flows better now, and he's definitely turned into one of my favorites. It's Sanji time, baby! Now, I am fully aware that some people either really love Sanji or really hate Sanji. And while this video is not about my personal feelings on how he's characterized some of the time, I'll say I'm on the more positive side of the Sanji spectrum. I decided to make him hail from the newest region of the game as of right now, Fontaine. I know it kind of feels like the obvious choice for him since he's supposed to be French and Fontaine is based on France, but come on! Fontaine's classiness and technological advancements works perfectly as we tried to fit Sanji's backstory into the Genshin universe. I decided to keep Sanji in a more formal-leaning outfit since I really wanted to keep the regalia that most Fontaine characters have. Trying to translate his suit into something more Genshin-like was really hard and involved me looking at several references of Nouvelette, Rylsley, and the Knave. The gears were a really big part too, just to add a bit more flavor to his coats as well as the Jerema logo on his collar. Now I know, Sanji would never be caught dead wearing Jerema, but it's cool, and gosh dang it, leave me alone! And of course, it wouldn't be Sanji without one of his cigarettes. Don't smoke, it's bad, kids. For his colors, I really thought I'd have a harder time, but most everything with Sanji came very naturally to me. The pop of teal really helps the outfit shine, and overall looks really good. As for Sanji's vision and weapon, I thought that it was pretty obvious to give him a Pyro Catalyst, not just cause Catalyst is the only weapon that allows you to not use your hands, but the Pyro Vision requirements matched so well for him. Pyro Vision holders are pretty passionate about what they do, not just cause of the already well-known features of fiery characters, but the second and more well-known requirement for Pyro characters is that they usually are following in the footsteps of a parent or parental figure in their life. It was quite literally a match made in heaven for Sanji because of his relation not just with Zeph, but his actual father, Judge. Whether Sanji wants to admit it or not, he is following in the footsteps of his father in the most molecular way, as we see in his fight with Queen in Wano. But he's also following in Zeph's footsteps to become a cook, as well as continuing his dream to find the All Blue. Everything fits so well together that I thought I was tripping when I had actually chosen the visions for all my characters beforehand, and then decided, hey, maybe I should actually see what the requirements are for obtaining a vision. Also, even more shockingly, was that Sanji was the first one not to get any revisions. My dad thought the pose was solid and the clothing was good, so Sanji stayed the way he was, which made me so proud. Yay me. Here's the finished Sanji, and we are on to the next one. My favorite Tonakai is here, and he gave me much more trouble than I thought he would. I love Chopper. He is literally my favorite character in One Piece, so I really wanted to do him justice. I tried to figure out where exactly he'd be from, since him being a talking reindeer wasn't exactly super canon to the Genshin universe in general, so I thought about making him be from Snezhnaya because of the whole Arctic thing and reindeers and stuff, but it didn't really fit in my mind. Snezhnaya is one of the two countries we have never seen before besides Natlan, and we've only ever seen the Harbingers, and I'm thinking they aren't really a good representation of what Snezhnaya is like as a whole. I was trying really hard to make his tiny talking reindeer thing work without the use of a devil fruit, and then I thought of it. I ended up making him from Liyue and used the Adepti as his models. Mooncarver is already a deer, kinda, so I thought making Chopper one wouldn't really be too much of an issue. I made him Geocatalyst and based his disguised form off the Melusines in Fontaine. According to the Adepti wiki, Adepti can literally take any form they want, which was confirmed in the newest update with Cloud Retainer, so having Chopper's normal disguise be modeled after a Melusine didn't seem like too big of a stretch for me. As for the Geo element, Geo characters are often unusually hardworking and often have gone through some degree of hardship to get where they are now. Chopper's backstory was the first time I cried while watching One Piece, so I think it's safe to give him a Geo Vision. Also, Geo Healer is a great combo, or maybe I'm just biased. I made sure to adorn him with a lot of jewels and pearls to make him feel a bit more regal. There is definitely a lot going on with his design, but I think that most of the colors and designs work well together. I made his fur a little more, I don't know, like cloud-like, to allude to the classic imagery of stylized clouds in old Chinese art. Not to mention the clouds look like cotton candy, and that's just so Chopper. I love it. I am in love. Love you, baby Chopper. Mwah. I love the overall look of this piece, however, with the highs in life, there also comes the lows, and Chopper was, of course, no exception. All the revisions pertain to his reindeer form, mainly his legs. Now, I know how to draw quadrupeds. I was an MLP artist for a long while, but reindeer? They got weird hooves. I looked at reindeer grippers for so long, and I did not have fun. So, fixed that while sparing the lovely details about how flat reindeer hooves are, and now the piece is finally finished. Good boy Chopper, oh we love him. On to the next one. Robin is up next and is our first Vision repeat. I gave her a Dendro Catalyst for pretty obvious reasons, but again going back to what I said about Dendro requirements back in Usopp's section. Yes, dreams are a part of the requirements, but a thirst for knowledge is the base of Sumeru's entire economical structure. The Akasha is the prime example of that, and with Robin being the last surviving person from Ohara, her thirst for forbidden knowledge would most likely earn her a Dendro Vision. Outfit-wise, I tried to make Robin an actual forest ranger, with the brown and green color palette lending nicely to her blues and pinks. I wanted a sleeker and more mobile design for her since it's something she'd need the freedom to move around in without actually flashing everyone, not like most of you would mind, you filthy animals. I made the shirt jacket she had green and gave her a bodysuit that's closer in color to the original top. I knew I should incorporate the pink of her long skirt that she has, but I was finding it difficult until I made her skirt into a sort of like sash skirt that has ruffles and kind of reminds me of a flower. I made sure to give her more random pieces of cloth and some more asymmetrical boots to match the actual rangers in the game. Not much changed in her revisions, but again, perspective was the problem, so I made sure to fix that. Her knee pad was another thing I technically should have fixed, but I'm tired, so give me a break. And she's done. Our super cyborg Franky is up next, and oh my gosh. I feel like I speak for the majority of artists I know, but have I ever mentioned I hate drawing mech and I'm really bad at it? Trying to make Franky fit into the world of Genshin was an actual living nightmare, since his design is so minimal, or I guess like aerodynamic if you want to call that, I don't know. I mean, Mans is literally wearing a Speedo all the time, and his shoulders are giant bowling balls. So, in order to keep him a cyborg, I made him from Fontaine, and heavily referenced the guard mechs in the city. I like to think that in Franky's lore-based backstory, the Aquabus system was made by Tom in this case, and Franky got hit from it and fell from the tracks as they took Tom to the Opera House. I knew for a fact I did not want to keep him in his Speedo since that really doesn't reflect Genshin designs at all, so I kind of changed it to this like fancy loincloth, I guess, and focused mostly on the clockwork that made up the majority of his design. I felt Pyro was a good choice vision-wise since he'd end up following in Tom's footsteps to become the greatest shipwright/inventor in the whole of Teyvat. Also, Pyro moves would look so cool on him. I'm sorry, I could not resist. I tried to keep the mechanics looking home-built since Franky technically built himself back up with scraps, but I don't really know if I did a good job with that or not because, once again, I hate and suck at drawing mech. Overall, I'm glad that it actually does look like Franky and his silhouette stayed generally the same. Also, another win for me since there were no revisions this time, so W's all around slay. A bone-chilling entry to the Straw Hats, Brook was one of the characters I really had to think hard about design-wise and lore-wise. Living skeletons aren't exactly a common thing in Genshin, so creativity really led the battle for this one. At first, I wanted him to be from Inazuma because the whole spirit thing with the sacred sakura tree, and focused mainly on Japanese-inspired clothing, but that was not fitting at all. I briefly toyed with making him human and just wearing a skeleton mask, but it felt too cheaty for me, I guess. Then, I had to pause and take a step back. I wanted him to be introduced in Inazuma, but realized I didn't want him to actually be from there. I decided to make him from Mondstadt and worked from there. The story I came up with goes as follows. Brook was originally a very renowned bard and militant strategist for the Knights of Favonius in Mondstadt. He would spend his free time writing and performing his songs about his many adventures in the square outside of the church for all to listen. He was then summoned to Inazuma with his division of knights to play directly for the shogun, as well as to meet an old friend he hadn't seen in a while. Brook and his crew ended up being caught in an assassination attempt on the shogun's life, and died protecting her from poison that had leased her entire food supply. The rest of the crew dying would play similarly to how it's played in Brook's actual backstory, until he's revived by the strange energy that comes from the Thunder Sakuras. I made him a cryo sword user just cause the cane sword was too cool not to use. Cryo characters often have internal conflict and have experienced some form of personal loss, whether it is literal or metaphorical. Cryo also seemed like a more obvious choice, with most of Brook's moves having to do with the icy wind of the underworld. Brook's colors also gave me so much trouble, because post-timeskit his palette is so chaotic, it was hard to pick just a couple colors from the 9 he has on him while keeping him still recognizable as Brook. I decided that light blue and orange would be the focus of his colors while making the purples and pinks in his design accent colors. Keeping his flower power pants was a must, and now he is a very distinguished gentleman, and I love him. Slay Grandpa, slay. He was also a character that didn't need revisions, so we can swiftly move on to the next and final character. The final Straw Hat has arrived, and it's Jinbe time! Since Jinbe's a fishman, I thought that making him from Fontaine was the obvious choice since it's the first area in Genshin with underwater exploration. I thought about making him a blacksmith and tried leaning into Fontainian fashion, but nothing was really working at all. I decided to stop fighting Jinbe's canon design and made him from Inazuma since he already only wears Japanese style clothing anyway. Jinbe is based on an Oni already, so I figured that he could be part of some splinter cell of Blue Oni. You'll know if you played Ito's story quest, that escaped into the waters of Inazuma and haven't been seen in centuries. I decided pants were the best way for him to add a little bit more detail into his otherwise simple design. I tied half his hair up with some more adornments and kept his color palette similar to his Wano outfit since the yellow and purple went really nice together. I made sure to make Jinbe a Hydro Catalyst because of the fishman karate he has in the show, but also because Hydro Vision holders, as well as having obsessions with certain goals or pursuits, have very strong moral values and belief systems. With being one of the older Straw Hats, his morals and beliefs during Fishman Island are what ultimately helped to convince the other fishmen not to be, like, racist. Yeah, Fishman Island be wild, dude. I liked the first pass enough, but there were a couple problems, so let's do our last set of revisions. His pose in the first pass was mainly off in the legs. The original stance I had him in was uncomfortable and very unbalanced, so if he was actually standing like how I drew him, he would have fallen over before he could even get out one punch. His hands were also way too large, and his arm was way too close to his chest, making him look just the slightest bit off. I also decided as a last touch to move his vision from his arm to his coat, since in the first image, that coat is only being held on by sheer willpower and nothing else. Like, what are you holding on to? There is nothing there. It could be an invisible bobby pin, but I for sure know I did not think that far ahead. The only other thing I really feel the need to comment on is the patterns. Not like they're bad or anything, just that any type of pattern making is not my favorite thing to do, but I think I was nailing it pretty well in most of these drawings and is still something I am super proud of. Anyway, stray thought, but Jinbe is done, so that means all of the Straw Hats are finally completed and accounted for, so let's take a look at the final results.
Good smell, flavor.
どうぞよろしく。
どうもお世話になりやした。
Thank you guys for getting through this complete monster of a video. I am absolutely aware that most of my viewers are not into One Piece, but this one is just for me this time. I genuinely hope you guys enjoy this to an extent and learn stuff on how to improve your own artwork as well. Big thanks to Papa Keki for helping me out with these revisions. I am so glad I asked for your help. Oh my gosh. They really needed them. If you want to see any of the One Piece related art that I actually am posting on all my other social medias, links will be in the description to those. Also, don't forget, my shop still exists, so if you want to check that out, link is also in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna go work on my perspective now. Bye bye!